So when I mic a drum kit, I use a combination of dynamic condenser and ribbon microphones. Over here we have the dynamics. The SM57 is the most common one that most people probably already have. This is the RE20, which is really nice for toms and kick drum. SM57 is great for snare or toms, depending. This is a Beta 52, which is really nice on kick drum. You can see it's got a large diaphragm, so it can pick up lower frequencies than the 57, which has a smaller diaphragm. These are condenser mics. These are the Neumann KM184s, which are great overheads over a drummer. Really nice and bright sounding. They also sound great on acoustic guitars. This is a U87, which is really good on just about anything. And this is a ribbon mic, a Coles 4038, which I really choose either between one of these or these for my overhead mics, depending on the drummer and how hard he hits the cymbals and what kind of style of drum sound the artist is looking for. So I'm going to take some time and show you guys how I might mic a drum kit, but keep in mind that it's only suggestion, and the #1 rule is whatever sounds best wins. So miking a kick drum, oftentimes I like to take the outside skin right off. You don't have to, but I like to. I find it gives me more control. When miking a kick drum, oftentimes I'll use 2 microphones. I place one of them kind of inside closer to the beater, and this mic would be to get more attack, sort of the click of the kick drum, and then I'd use another one further back to get more of the oomph and the low end kind of rumble. But you got to be very careful about the distance between the 2 mics. A good rule of thumb is however long the drum shell is should be the distance between your 2 microphones because of the size of the wave that the drum will create. You want to keep those 2 mics relative to each other so that they'll be in phase. So we're moving on to the snare drum. There's no real rule of how to mic a snare. Some people like to have the mic pointed up at an angle. Some people like to have it more vertical, more horizontal alongside the drum. It will give you a very different sound depending on how up or down you are, so just experiment and try and see what you like. One of the things you can do is to minimize the amount of hi-hat bleed into your snare, I try to point the snare mic so that the hi-hat is directly behind it, because that's where the most cancellation is, the most rejection from the mic. So if you don't want a lot of hi-hat in your snare, you should try to have the hi-hat directly behind the snare mic. Another important thing when you're miking either a snare or a tom is not to put the mic too close. If you put a mic really, really close, some people might say that that's choked, because when you hear a drum, your ear isn't right next to it. So I like to put my mic a little further away, sort of a more natural, open sound to the drum. And again, on the floor tom, I'd put it probably somewhere like that. A lot of people, would put it rather close, and I find putting it kind of further away can give you a more open, natural sound. So moving on, we do overheads. Overheads, I was saying sometimes I like to use ribbons, sometimes I like to use condensers. Condensers, like the Neumann KM184, placed approximately like this, will give you a really bright, really nice cymbal sound. One technique of drum miking is to first get the sounds of your overheads. Try to get the entire drum kit, toms, kick, snare, everything going in these, and that way all you need to do is just bring up a little bit of the other ones just to taste. Really, if you have your entire drum sound in your overheads, then you can't really lose. I personally like to record drums in a room with as little other noise as possible, mostly so that I can do some heavy compression techniques on room mics and stuff. And if you have other people in the room, that's just going to get bleed into everything. I usually, at the very minimum, put the bass player in the room so he can make eye contact with the drummer and they can look at each other and feel the vibe when they're playing with each other. But oftentimes I'll do that with the bass player plugged in direct, so there's no actual sound in the room. The only sound in the room is the drums itself. That allows for the most control as an engineer. But sometimes bands like to all be together in a room playing and you record just live off the floor, and that's really cool too. You just have kind of less options and less control.